Hi, I have a cool hat. It's a farmer's hat. Today we're talking about farming games, the history of them. Also, I'm telling it in chapters. The year is 1981. Or possibly 2. I don't know. The wiki says 2, but right here on the opening screen it says 1 right there. So yeah, this is Utopia, by the way, and this game was really freaking ahead of its time. At a time where all games were like action and jumping and eating and stuff, Mattel Electronics just randomly dropped the first ever turn-based strategy game, which kind of laid the base for games like Civilization and SimCity and stuff like that years later. And personally, I think those types of games are really boring, but that is still really cool that Mattel did this so early on. But yeah, like, who cares, right? Like, what does that have to do with farming games? It does! Shut up! It has something to do with farming games. Look! See? Crops. You can plant crops, which I think makes the first game to have farming in it, I think. Unless you count text-based crops, which would make their debut Hammurabi, which was a text-based resource management game that was originally made in frickin' 1968. Yeah, frickin' pre-Pawn, pre-Beatles breakup, pre-Scooby-Doo. And it had farming, kind of. You had randomized crop yields from your acres of land and number of villagers that you could either use to feed your villagers or plant for the next year to feed your villagers. So yeah, this is the first game to feature farming. But although farming was like a cool feature and all, that's all it was. A feature. These are games about managing early civilizations, and yeah, that means you have crops, but blah blah blah. Does that really make it a farming game? I don't think it does. You're an emperor, sending off your men to farm for you. Farming is a mere aspect of your job. It is not your life. You don't wear this cool farming hat, you wear a crown. I want to be a real farmer. I want that to be the main and only aspect of my game. 1993, Sim Farm, SimCity's country cousin. To my knowledge, Sim Farm is the first full-on farming simulator. Farming is no longer a little aspect of creating some sort of civilization. It is the entire game. You choose your location, buy your land, clear your land, build roads and barns and sheds to store your trucks and tractors and fertilizers and pesticides. And yeah, there's freaking pesticides, because this game is hella realistic. Crops have all these stats and effects that can happen that affect the quality of what you can sell them for, and they can be taken over by pests or droughts or dust storms. And there are analytics of like the crop market and the shifting of crop values. You draw your water, you irrigate it and dispense it to your crops, to your animals. You just build and plan freaking everything. You even have to build the literal roads like to the town to actually connect yourself with the market. Everything in this game is just extremely detailed and fleshed out, and it's all focused around farming. It is, without a doubt, the first true farming game. Except for maybe 1989's Japan-exclusive PC game, Daichi-kun Crisis Do Natural, which is apparently about farming, but I don't know, I can't really tell what's going on, and it's all in Japanese. Oh, and I suppose Germany had Weinzer in 1991, if you count the wine business as a category of farming. I don't know. This game looks very boring. So yeah, Sim Farm. I'm gonna call it the first true farming game. And yeah, it's the frickin' bomb.net. Something about 90s PC games just hit this very specific vibe that I love. The music, the little bouncy sound effects when you place things, the menus with all their little pixel art displays. It's just a cozy ass little game and a pioneer of the what used to be niche genre that is farming games. And for being the first, it's impressively in-depth and customizable, and it still kind of holds up as one of the best farming game experiences if you're into the more tycoon-y, managey side of farming. But if all the nerdy stuff about managing a farm isn't quite your cup of all-American mug root beer, which is understandable because, yeah, you have to do taxes in Sim Farm, which, God, like, why? But yeah, whatever. There was a game that would come out a few years later that would redefine the blueprint of what a farming game is, and in fact, really truly create the genre. And that was 1996 Harvest Moon for the SNES. Harvest Moon is a game that is much more than just about farming, okay? It is about truly being the farmer. No longer are we in the sky looking down at our crops and farms. No, we're right down here, living in the farmhouse, plowing the dirt with our own hands, and actually being a member of a rural town, creating friendships and getting married and wearing cool hats and stuff. The game was created by Yasuhiro Wada, who was living in Tokyo at the time and missed the countryside setting of his childhood. So he decided to make a game that encapsulated the simple rural lifestyle in an RPG that had no combat, which was virtually unheard of at the time. The look and feel of the game was inspired by The Legend of Zelda, with the simulation game Derby Stallion also helping to inspire the inclusion of animals and ranching. In the game, you play as a young man who inherits his recently passed grandfather's farm out on the countryside. The farm has fallen into shambles and is overrun by weeds, stumps, and rocks, and it is the player's job to revitalize the farm within a couple years by clearing the land, growing crops, selling harvest, raising livestock, foraging, and getting to know the townsfolk, attending festivals, and getting married and stuff. If the blueprint for this game sounds familiar to you, to a much newer farming game, then you are absolutely freaking right, but hold on to your freaking horses, okay? Because first, we have to go over what I like to call the dark age of farming games. I'm being really freaking melodramatic right now. There's not really a dark age of farming games. There's just Farmville, which just really peeves me off. This was a Facebook-ran social network game based off Harvest Moon, and it was really popular. Like 80 million monthly players at some point popular. But the game's a waste of time. It's filled with microtransactions. It like pretty much started the trend of like play for free, pay to win type BS stuff. And also, yeah, it freaking had hello spyware at some point. So yeah, I hate this game. And as a farming game enthusiast, I'm ashamed that this was one of the most popular games of the genre. But it's okay. It's alright, because a little guy named Eric, Concerned Ape Baroni, would bring us out of this dark age with a little game called Stardew Valley. Pretty soon. Also, Farming Simulator and Minecraft exists, and Harvest Moon sucks now, and it's called Story of Seasons now too. Okay, next chapter. Harvest Moon sucks now, boo-hoo, wah-wah, what are you gonna do about it? That's not a rhetorical question, this is constructive bullying. Cause what you're gonna do about Harvest Moon being bad now is just make the frickin' dang game yourself. And that's exactly what Concerned Ape did with Stardew Valley. It was meant to be a small project, a little Harvest Moon clone to like boost up the resume. He thought it'd take like 4 months, it took like 4 years, 4.5 years. His pixel art and programming and all this stuff just kept improving, and all of his ideas just were growing and growing. So the project just kind of ended up becoming his life. He worked 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, while his girlfriend worked 2 jobs to support the both of them, which is very nice and very cool. And it was all worth it because when this game dropped in 2016, it was just perfect. It still is perfect. I don't know why I'm talking in past tense. This is my favorite game. This game has so much heart and so much soul and so much love poured into it, and it's so infinitely replayable, and I just love it so much. The game is loved by millions of others too. It's sold over 20 million copies, and it even inspired that one guy to quit his job and go live on a farm, just like your character in the game. Stardew Valley just also created this weird, like, farming craze in the indie game world, and there's been this great big old boom of like a million, billion, jillion, kabillion farming games in modern day. Sunhaven, My Time at Portia, Coral Island, Kinseed, Slime Rancher, Ranch Simulator, Dinkum, Ooblet, Staxel, Dreamlight Valley, Garden Paws, Graveyard Keeper, Core Keeper, Farm Keeper, Farm Together, Farm Folks, Farm Frenzy, Farmer's Dynasty, Fade Farm, Koi Farm, Pomo Farm, Forest Farm, Blocky Farm, the list goes on and on and on. Every other indie game is just a farming game now. Sometimes that doesn't even feel like an exaggeration, watching a Nintendo Direct and hearing the words cozy little farming sim over and over and over again, multiple times in the same game showcase. We live in this absolutely bonkers, crazy timeline, an unprecedented age where the farming simulator is actually like extremely relevant and no longer some weird niche genre dominated by Harvest Moon. We have so many options for farming games now. We have too many options for farming games now. I'm feeling farmers oversaturation, dude. I'm overwhelmed by the number of choices. And what's crazy is we all know Stardew Valley is the best option, and it's only 15 bucks. So the indie world is like running on the idea of what to play when you're bored of Stardew Valley. I don't know, just crazy. It's bonkers. And that's farmers' history. That's everything. That's modern day for now. Love you. Bye-bye. Mwah. Like and subscribe. Listen to Sparks. Bye.